Oh, that's very official, isn't it? Now, those of you who have met me before will be looking, how am I looking so great today? I discovered the vanity filter on Zoom. I don't know if anyone else has ever discovered that before, but there's this setting that softens the light, and suddenly I look better than I ever have. So I'm going to start talking to my family and things like that with this filter on from now on, and they'll think I'm doing sort of regular exercise instead of just sitting in front of a computer. But if you are, feel free, it's somewhere in the settings, but just be careful, because I think I nearly ended the meeting before trying to do it, but it was well worth it. The other thing though, just being in Zoom, is some Zoom etiquette. I know everyone by now is well versed in using different technology. I'm just going to ask though that if you can mute yourself when you're not talking, and if you want to raise a question, the two options, either put your hand up by using the reaction button down the bottom, or feel free to type it into the chat as well, just as Kirsten has done there. Where is that? Oh, that might have been referring to the vanity filter. I couldn't actually figure out where it is again, so I'm just leaving this setting on, so I'm not going to be able to help you there, I'm sorry. I was going to do a bit of an introduction of the BGEN network, but then I decided it'd be better to hand over to Michael to do that, who is the convener of the BGEN network and has been part of this network for, since its inception, I think. So Michael, is it okay if I hand over to you for a quick introduction to the network?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everybody. Yeah, I've been around for a while with the BGEN network. It's been quite a few years. We used to be called the Botanic Garden Education Network, and then we decided we had lots of engagement type people involved. So we changed it to the Botanic Garden Engagement Network, but it still looks the same. It's an E. So we have monthly sort of committee meetings where we just chat basically about what we're doing and do any plannings for sessions like this. So if you're interested in joining, we're always looking for members, and you can let Ben know. You'd be right to do that when you're Ben's the secretary, so he can sort of look after you on that one. The other thing that you can do, if you go to the BGEN's website, we've actually got a BGEN blog there. And Ben and I learned how to actually put things on that the other day. And we put the thing that I'm hoping to show you today at some stage on Fibonacci there as well. So, but you can put a post on there. It can be anything. It can be a photo of you in the garden saying, look, this is the best part of the garden for me, or it could be a flyer for something that you're planning, or it could just be a one-page I don't know, lesson plan or something. It could be anything that you can, and it'll help other people. The idea of BGEN is that we're trying to help all of this big network of us that are involved in educating almost alone, I suppose, in botanic gardens. So yeah, so that's enough from me. I'll hand back to Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. As Michael said, and I'm just going to change the view here. As Michael said, the network has been going for a while. I've only just recently joined, but one thing I really love is the idea of bringing different people together, and I've often referred to it as 1 + 1 can = 3, where sometimes you bring the ideas of different people and groups together and you can get more than you can ever achieve. There's actually a saying that says that, isn't there? Someone will type it into the chat, I'm sure. But I just like to ruin other people's sayings by putting it into my own language. We go through each year and try and decide on the different topics that are going to be suitable or relevant to the network and members of the network across the various gardens. And having sort of stalled for a few months, so I should acknowledge as well that Julia Watson, who was the convener of this network, finished up with the Auckland Botanic Gardens earlier in the year. Paul has actually replaced Julia in that role and is waving at the camera now. See, I can always tell what people are about to do. It's amazing. Julia was the convener for quite a long time and had set up a really strong process and network here. So we're really just trying to fill in, following her footsteps at the moment, and regenerating the network. But this is the first network meeting that has been for a little while because of that changeover. But in looking at things that are relevant to the different gardens at the moment. I guess what we came across in some of the discussions in the committee were the switch that different gardens were trying to make a bit more, to have some more emphasis on self-guided visits. The obvious reason being that coming out of lockdown and issues around social distancing and issues with delivering big scale events, and even in some cases small events as well, just not being allowed. So how can we still find ways for people to engage with our gardens during these times? And so I asked two of my fantastic colleagues today to come along from the programming team, Cara Ward and Sally McPhee. And I asked them, can you please put together a short presentation that will sort of talk about some of the work that we've been doing in that space that we're really quite proud of in a lot of ways. And I think what we hope as part of these network meetings is that a short presentation from someone, and whilst I reach out to my colleagues this time, we welcome ideas from other members of the network as well for future meetings, but a short presentation at the start we hope will lead to other people wanting to ask questions and also share potentially some of the resources and ideas and things that they're doing in their garden as well. Because I think that's where the strength of a network like this comes from, is when people are willing to share what they're doing. And probably one of the biggest benefits of COVID has mean that geographical distance isn't as much of a barrier anymore. And so we can come together and share different things like we probably haven't been able to before. Now I'm just going to let Eamon in, who's in the waiting room there as well. So without any further ado, I might hand over to you, Cara and Sally, if that's okay. Cara Ward is another creative producer at Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria, who creative producer of special projects, and Sally McPhee's creative producer of placemaking and interpretation. Two people I have the pleasure of working with on a daily basis. We're remote for a while, but yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Cara, do you want to share the PowerPoint, or do you want me to, or?
Sure. Yeah, I shall do that, Sal. Might need you to enable me, Ben, to share the screen. It says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Okay, give me a minute.
Is that okay?
Yep, I've just made you a co-host, so you should be able to share now as well.
Okay, great. There we go. Has everyone got that? Not yet? How about now?
Coming through.
Beautiful.
Yeah. All right. I'll do this first bit, Sal.
Yeah, is that cool?
Yep. So there we go. Yeah, Sally and I are going to very much do a double act this afternoon and pass back and forth. So thank you, lovely host, and we're also very lucky to work with you. So yes, this is just a little overview of some of the self-guided programming that we've done in the last too long, really, year and a bit. So we did the big digital pivot in 2020, which I think we actually spoke to this group about probably around this time last year. So I won't speak too much about that. That speaks for itself. But essentially it was because all programming was cancelled. So we started videoing content and doing some live streaming and those sorts of things. And then 2021 is Royal Botanic Garden Victoria's 175th milestone year. So we had planned last year that we would have a series of 4 events, one per season, that would focus on a different precinct of the gardens that would enable us to tell stories of that place. And these events were conceived to be, you know, semi-large events with a whole range of different activities for all age groups that would celebrate the nature, culture, science realm. So we would work with Ben's team for participatory workshops, very hands-on, and we would have other workshops. We would have music, all those kinds of things. And then in December last year, the Victorian government issued the COVID event, public event framework, and that had all kinds of rules that made doing anything in the gardens very tricky, because you had to have a controlled entry point. And so in the arid and drylands precinct, and we would have had to put up a fence within the garden to do a controlled entry. So those restrictions led us to basically do a complete
Cara, you're just cutting in and out a bit.
complete 360.
You might need to turn off your
To
camera.
redesign the programming completely, so that it was all, you know, basically to a 5-day. Any better?
Yeah, keep talking.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Okay, keep talking. So yes, the gatherings needed a whole new redesign, and that yeah, forced us to come up with some other ideas. So I'll segue to you, Sel, now.
Yeah.
To talk
Thank
about
you. Excellent. Am I on? Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Yeah, great. I'll just tell you when to go forward, Cara, if that's okay, on the slides. So
That's
as
good.
Cara kind of spoke about, I'm going to talk about 2 projects that we developed as part of our self-guided suite, I guess we're calling it now. And then Cara's going to come back in and talk about another 2 projects. And what you'll see through when we talk through these is that the garden gathering model has actually helped us develop other models that we're continuing to kind of grow and evolve as we get to know them better. We're kind of thinking them as choose your own adventure tools. So things that people can come to the gardens and use to really enhance their experience. I think we all know how familiar we've become with our own 5 kilometres. And when we devised these, we were really thinking about a way in. Our gardens are beautiful. Obviously, everyone's gardens are very beautiful in their own right. But these self-guided activities are to kind of give people another tool, another way to experience the garden, to see them through a different lens, be they regular visitors or first-time visitors. So the first project I'm going to talk about is what we're calling our Seek and Find cards. These are developed in collaboration with an artist named Claire Mosley. There she is. She's just beautiful, a lovely artist who works with drawing and illustrative drawing and watercolours. One of our colleagues, Emily, who's one of the senior learning facilitators, knew of Claire. Claire had developed these kind of nature cards like bush bingo, bird bingo, and nature scavenger hunt cards. And Emily suggested that we approach Claire and perhaps commission her to create a similar kind of thing, but to respond to our garden gatherings. So the first garden gathering that we worked on was about the arid garden, like Cara mentioned. And for the process that we really went through with Claire was we invited her in to talk to our staff about that particular area. We invited her to really spend time in that place and take inspiration from that place in creating a little seek and find card. We said that they would be, we asked her to devise something that would encourage our visitors to explore different areas of Melbourne Gardens, particularly areas beyond the Children's Garden and Cranbourne Gardens in greater detail, and to encourage a sense of curiosity in our visitors about the natural world around them. So Claire's approach, if you could go to the next slide, Cara. So these are 2 examples. The Melbourne Garden Seek and Find Nature card number 1 is the one created in response to the arid garden. She really takes an approach that encourages and prompts people to find something in the environment by using kind of cute little prompts. So instead of saying, go and find a cactus, on these cards she says, find something spiky. Instead of saying, find a colourful flower, she says, find something that has 5 different shades of colour. And being really conscious of the place in which these will be used in, she uses things very specific to the place as well. So Royal Botanic Gardens, we all have plant labels. She prompts the user to go and find a plant from another country. Claire also created, for any of our, we kind of leverage this model for all of our public events, wanted to give another element that could be used whether the event went ahead or not, or whether we could have live activity or not. And importantly, would become a legacy piece. So we asked her to also create one in response to our Big Bandicoot Backyard, which is an ongoing annual event at Cranbourne Gardens. And these ones were Seek and Find Out About the Southern Brown Bandicoot. Claire's also created ones for our second garden gathering, which was Oak Lawn, and for the Cranbourne Gardens, Australian Garden and Bushland area as well. Go to the next slide, please, Cara. And we used this model of a Seek and Find card also for another big annual, usually public event that unfortunately, because of COVID, we've had to cancel the live element of 2 years in a row now. And that's our NAIDOC event at Cranbourne Gardens. It's a really grassroots community event. So we worked with Little Rocket, who are an Indigenous owned and run design media company, and our Aboriginal staff out in Cranbourne and Melbourne to develop the content and artwork for these two particular cards here. So that's the Bush Food Guide and the Connecting to Country Seek and Find cards. So I think the takeaways from these two projects are how like it's not new to develop a self-guided piece of printed material. But what we loved about this process was bringing in an artist to collaborate with our people and our places and bring their kind of fresh eyes and perspectives. And of course, it was really great to be able to work with artists and in a period where a lot of artists couldn't work. That was very satisfying for all of us as well. The next project I'd like to talk about is, it's a very different project to this one. It's called Sonica Botanica, and it's an audio experience work. I think this is the next slide. Thank you. Oh, sorry, no, there's a picture of someone enjoying a Seek and Find card, that previous slide.
Hey, Sally, just while we're on that picture, just really, we've had just 2 questions in the chat. How do you make the cards available to visitors? And also Linda has put, I noticed the Seek and Find cards for the gathering had quite a childlike font. Assumed it was purposeful for the audience as well, for the targeted audience.
Yeah, that's right. So I'll answer that one first. So the brief was to create something that was aimed at families, so particularly families with children from up to 12 years old. But Claire's design is pretty whimsical and accessible for all age groups. But yes, the brief was to design for that kind of age group. And where you can get them, how we distribute them, we have them available at our visitor centre. And we're actually currently working on, and at the garden gatherings, we had, you might have seen in that very first slide, we had big poster boards that had brochure, where relevant, had a kind of brochure holder on them where they're available with a description of what they were and how to use them. We're currently trying to work on ways of making them available at different areas beyond the visitor centre, particularly at the moment, the visitor centre is closed, people can't come in. So we're working on adapting some of our brochure holders that are on our mat boards at various gates around the gardens to accommodate this size. So we're still kind of that's a bit of a work in progress, actually. That question about being printable online, I've seen one come through. Initially, the agreement with the artists was that they would be made available free of charge, but only in printed format. Since COVID and since the visitor centre has been closed, we are now seeking permission from the artists that we've worked with to make them available online only during lockdown. Yeah. Any other questions in there, Ben?
No, that's it for now.
Yeah, so now I'll talk about Sonica Botanica. This is an audio experience work that we also commissioned as part of the 175th. Sonica Botanica it's not an audio tour, it's an audio experience that corresponds to particular places in the gardens. And again, was and we commissioned 4 episodes, and each one was to respond to the seasonal garden gathering locations. The episodes are designed to reveal kind of bigger ideas and themes for listeners to contemplate. They feature interviews with people who have a special connection to each place, or the plants there, or the themes that are explored in each episode. The artist we work with on this project, his name is Patrick Cronin. He is a Melbourne-based sound artist and musician who has a very eclectic grounding in arts and sound. Patrick is he's a musician in the Melbourne Ska Orchestra and a band called Dr. Hernandez, which is a very popular Melbourne band. And as well as being a performer himself, he's also a really skilled producer and a great enabler of other people's stories and creativity. Throughout his career, he's worked on projects that connect people with place by engaging community and helping tell their stories through creative outcomes. He's a really great collaborator, and we work very closely on this project together. So far we've released 2 episodes, but I'm just going to speak about the first episode as a little example. Episode 1 was released during our summer garden gathering, and it tells the story of the people and plants behind our redesigned arid garden, which is a cactus and succulent garden. And it forms an audio layer to complement the new landscape interpretation in the arid garden. And it's been designed to kind of sit comfortably amongst those stories and build upon them rather than repeat them. So to make this episode, we worked with Patrick to create a really good mix of interviewees and speakers. They included our staff, the curator of the collection, Brett Pritchard, our landscape architect, Andrew Laidlaw, as well as Robert Field, whose family donated many of the plants that were part of the Arid Garden collection. And then we also interviewed a lifelong visitor to the gardens who's a cacti enthusiast and a philosopher of science, as it happened. Her name was Pip Wright. And we vox popped visitors to the garden to get their first impressions and their experience of the plants there. We also invited students from Northcote High School who'd been working with our learning team on a digital program during COVID called Hack the Cac, which is a biomimicry program encouraging students to take inspiration from cactus to solve a design problem in the world. So these students had participated online, but we interviewed them in the arid garden during their very first visit there. So I'm going to play a little snippet from the episode now, if this works. Patrick, oh no, host is disabled my screen sharing.
Give me 1 minute.
Thank you. Oh yeah, thank you. Well, bear with.
Do you need me to stop sharing, Sil?
No, I don't. I think I'm overriding you, Cara. I think it's working. Just tell me 1 second.
Right.
Can you hear this?
Yep.
In 1870, William Guilfoyle arrives and he designs it as one garden. Within that garden, he designates areas that are very dry and hot, and these were areas that were planted with lots of succulent material.
It's interesting because you can look at an arid landscape and see the lack of something, or you can look at an arid landscape and see the abundance of something.
The fact that they can put up with extreme heat, drought and cold, to be honest. You know, a lot of them grow up in the mountains, and a lot of them are covered in these white fuzzy fur, which protects them from both heat and cold.
Honestly, perfection is seeing its beautiful, seeing the patterns and the interplay.
A lot of people may not realise just how incredible cacti plants are, but they're some of the best in the world, I think. I just love the forms and the shapes and the weirdness of them.
I don't like them all. I just don't like the way they just done a weird thing that I'll. If you look at in mathematics.
So that's just a little snippet, and hopefully your appetite has been whet and you're going to visit the arid garden and listen to them all in place, because these are available to listen in place. We put some signage in the landscape, the temporary signs. They have a QR code that takes you directly to the episode, and you can enjoy them on your own device. We are in we've released a second episode. It's about Oak Lawn. I encourage you to go have a listen. It's available on our website too. So you don't need the QR code to access them. You can just listen via our website, and they hold up, I can guarantee. And we're in pre-production for the third episode, which is about Fern Gully, the sensory garden and the herb garden. And our fourth episode will look at the Long Island Southern China collection of our garden. So the main learnings from this is how exciting it can be to work with artists who have a real community and place focus, and how good it's been to leverage the garden's community itself. So our staff or the learning program, and really kind of take advantage of what they're doing in projects like this, or indeed donors like the Field family. Cara, I'll hand over to you. Sorry, I think I spoke a bit long.
No, that's fine. Sal, I might trouble you to share so I can see my notes, if that's okay. If I stop the share and you take over the PowerPoint, is that all right?
Yeah, for sure.
And let's see if I can. Thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. My Wi-Fi is particularly bad today. I'm not sure what's happening. Got 2 children homeschooling, so I think that never helps, the Wi-Fi or one's mental health. So yes, the first project that I am going to speak about is called Flora and the Barren, which is a narrative audio tour. This is a project that we commenced working on. Actually, I've been at the Gardens for 4 years, and it was about that time of Joseph approached Ama Harrington, who is Sal Ben and I's boss. She's the head of programming and audience development. He's an artist that there he is there on the left. He came to AMA. He's a theatre maker, musician, really has done a lot of community-based projects. And he'd recently retrained as a horticulturalist and had learnt about Baron Ferdinand von Mueller and and that he was the first director of Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria. He is his partner, Karen Berger. They have a company called Bowerbird Theatre. So they are local theatre makers. And their idea at first was to make a promenade theatre piece based around the life of the Baron. Now, as time went on, we had 2 creative developments with them. We paired them up with Australia's preeminent von Mueller historian, whose name is Sarah Morosky. She works out of the herbarium quite often. So she formed a critical part of the early research phase of this project. And Karen and Dave they worked on this. As I said, they had 2 creative developments with us, which is essentially 2 lots of 3 weeks over that time, where they came to the gardens and did an extraordinary amount of research, used our archives, and as I say, spent time with Sarah and developed a script. Now, last year, we were still talking about theatre, and then COVID happened, and we said, actually, let's make this a narrative audio theatre piece, and let's aim for digital simplicity. And by that, we meant let's not make people download an app. Let's see if we can do this via people scanning a QR code. So just to backtrack a little bit about this, so for those of you that don't know, Baron Ferdinand von Mueller, eccentric outsider, global scientific powerhouse, and as I say, his first director. So he was cut off from the gardens from his beloved gardens for the last 20 years of his life in self-imposed exile. So he is why Karen and Dave were really attracted to von Mueller, not only because of his extraordinary legacy, but because he actually has a lot of dramatic peaks and troughs in his life. So makes for a very good story. So the idea of the narrative audio tour is that it imagines Mueller's response to his legacy, and it is as though he re-enters the garden. So it's the voice of the Baron that you're hearing, and it's a really beautiful journey through the gardens. So in terms of the making of this, myself and Mark Lowry, a producer in my team, worked really closely with Dave and Karen in the latter parts of this project in determining the wayfinding and how people, for those of you that have been to Melbourne Gardens, it was designed for people to feel lost. So when you take on something like this with an audio tour that is quite specific to looking at certain trees, we had to really think hard about how to do that without putting 100 signs in the landscape, which is of course not what we always want to do. But speaking of the sign, Sal, I might get you just to flick forward to the signage. So there you go. Yes, so the one on the far left there, these signs are AO size, so they're quite large. They sit outside gate F in the gardens, and there is a QR code there. So the audience scan that QR code and it takes them to a SoundCloud file on our website. And then as they journey through the gardens, there's particular parts where we have these little signs that you can see that help people know that they're on the right track, and they sort of just act as prompts. But ultimately we made the decision that the Baron would be your guide. So I think rather than talk any more about that,
Cara, there was just one
okay,
quick
I can
question.
see a question. Any chance? Yes. Yes, okay, I can see. Do you have an issue with people not using headphones to listen? Well, I was just reflecting on Sal, rightly talking about learnings. This project has been railroaded a few times by lockdown, and we actually ended up just launching it. We had put all the signs out on August 5th, and then on August 6th we went back into lockdown, but the signs were out, the SoundCloud was up, and so it is up and running. So we know that people within 5K of the gardens have been listening to it, because we can see on the SoundCloud file how many people do, but we don't really have loads of feedback just yet, because it has only been up and running for what, 20 days. So you could listen to it on speaker, but we really, in all of the information in promoting it and the information on the website, we really encourage you to wear your headphones, because it is truly a deep listening experience. You really need to concentrate, and you need to listen to the Baron and his directions to tell you where to go. And I'll play you an excerpt in a moment, so you can hear from the Baron himself, but he does speak in language that would have been typical of that era, and he also has a German accent, so headphones are strongly recommended. And the next question: any chance of a broad hint to the cost of this project re narrative audio? Look, off the top of my head, over these, it'd be it's probably about between 8 and I'd say 8 and 12,000 that we've spent on this. So I've got too many other projects in my head at the moment. We did apply for, and look, we pay artists. We usually use the MEAA weekly rate as a guide, as a fee. There's only 2 artists been involved in this. As I said, they had those, and Sarah is the historian. We have applied for various grants for this project through both the City of Melbourne, so local government, and there are some historical societies that have some grants for these sorts of things. And we have a grant from our foundation that helped make this possible. So I'm going to see if I can play a little audio clip for you. As I said, I've got pretty poor Wi-Fi today. So Ben, do you want to let me know if this is working?
Yeah,
or
do you want to turn off your camera perhaps at the same time?
Yep.
If that helps.
Sorry, hang on 2 seconds. I'll just get to the right point. Okay, and one moment. Okay, can you hear that?
No.
No.
No, I think.
Do I need to stop sharing, Ben?
Oh, hang on.
No, I think Cara just needs to.
All right,
check
hang on a
a
second.
bit of audio.
Okay, hang on a second. I'll try once more. Okay, it's telling me I can't share because Sal's sharing. I won't worry. What I'll do is I'll put a link
Yeah,
as someone has
Lenka
already
has-
done. Good on you, Lenka.
Lenka
Thanks,
has just
lovely
put
Lenka.
the link in the chat there, so everyone can have a listen to that a bit later, perhaps.
Yeah, yes. Thank you for doing that, Lenka. So yeah, people, please go and have a listen. It has been designed to listen to on site because it is a really beautiful way to engage with the gardens. And just, you know, some of our aims for this project were to provide a unique experience for audiences to explore the gardens and its history via our storied first director. We were utilising the 175th milestone year to provoke contemplation of Muller's legacy. It was to inspire audiences to connect with nature and to take physical and emotional journeys. The other thing that I should say is that, you know, we were very conscious of retelling a colonial story. So Dave and Karen worked with a First Nations theatre dramaturg by the name of Andrea James, who consulted with them and worked with them on the script to ensure that it was okay from a First Nations perspective. Yeah, so the other thing was it was a way of creating awareness for the history of Western botanical and environmental discovery and to encourage a deeper engagement and connection to nature using a new and interactive form. So we also hope that this will be quite a strong legacy piece and that it will be quite timeless and will be a lasting one. And as I said, we only launched it 20 days ago, so I don't have much more to say about any of the learnings or takeaways. But yes, it is, you know, it is, oh yes, how do you determine the lifespan of a project like this? Yes, it's a good question. We will really just see how it goes. We do think it's a timeless piece and that it is a story of the garden. So we will just see, and we can, one of the great things about using the SoundCloud file is that you get all the analytics on how many people are listening to it on the website and how many people are scanning the QR code. So it's a free experience, and yeah. So we'll just keep monitoring it and assess it as we go. One option. Yeah. How long were each narrative at each spot? It is a continuous journey. You start at one side of the gardens and end up on the other side. It's about a 50-minute. Times when the Baron asks, "Oh, you're really walking at a slowish pace." He sort of his story. You sort of according to the way that the narrative is going and to what they're pointing out. Yeah. So I think that's Flora and the Baron. I'll maybe move on to the next one unless there's any other questions. Yep. No worries. So 5 minutes more for this next one. Ben tells me that's no problem. I'll go on to talking about Seeing the Invisible, which is a big project that we were launching on September 23, and we're now considering changing the date. So not sure yet, but soon. It's an augmented reality contemporary art exhibition. What that means is that you download an app onto your phone and then you walk around the gardens and using GPS of a particular area. You'll be looking at a map and the dot will pulsate just like on other GPS things. Then once you're in a particular place where we've placed, I'm not sure if I'm doing a good job of explaining this, but the GPS triggers, the artwork appears in front of you. So maybe Sal, if you flick forward to some of the images, it'll help illustrate what I'm doing a bad job of explaining. So there's 13 artworks. So here we go. Neither of these pictures are from our gardens. This is a global collaboration 12 botanic gardens from around the world are participating in this. It is being led by the Jerusalem Botanic Gardens and Outset Contemporary Art. We were invited to be the only Australians participating in this project, and that relation started the Climate Change Alliance, and the Climate Change Alliance for Botanic Gardens started at the end of 2018, and the Royal Botanic Gardens Victoria they established that alliance, and the Jerusalem Botanic Gardens were one of the original 13 founding members. So we have a very strong relationship with Jerusalem, and so the invitation to participate as the only Australian garden in this global project actually came by our horticulture team.
Sandwich there to toast.
So the artists that are involved in this, there's
And Curry, you're just cutting out a little bit.
Yes, so there's 13 artists from around. Sorry, I don't know what to do. Shall I keep talking, or
I can pick
keep
up if
trying
you
and
like.
then tell me if it's no good, Ben?
We might try. Is it okay to pass over to Sally to do this part?
Of course. Thanks, Sal.
No worries, just correct anything I get incorrect. So there's 13 artists. I think that's what you're about to say, Cara. 13 artists from around the world, including some an Australian artist and artists like these amazing ones on the screen. And Cara and her team and many members of our team have been walking around the gardens, curating the best spot for these particular artworks to kind of sit, for want of a better word. And really they do look quite amazing. It's quite an amazing experience. When you hold up your phone and those artworks appear, you can walk around them, you can get under them. Cara was telling a great story the other day about Mark lying on the ground looking at the underside of an artwork. Some of them have sound, and some of them are quite interactive actually, and it change the way that they look depending on where you stand in relation to that artwork. All of the artworks do kind of speak to nature or climate change or biodiversity loss. There is that overlay through all of them. So they are very much at home in a garden, and a very much a different way of seeing the gardens as a gallery. And because the project goes for about a year, I think in total, is happening in many places around the world simultaneously, all of these artworks will not only look different depending on the garden that they're in, but the season in which you view them. We're really hoping, along with the other gardens we're collaborating with, to build on this program and really leverage it through our other programming. So through learning, through interpretation, through talks with artists, but hopefully from around the world and other botanic gardens. And we're working on those projects, what they might be right now. Cara, was there anything else you wanted to say? If you're still there.
No, that's good, Sal. Maybe just flick through the other pages to give them some of the other photos.
Oh, that's nice.
These are, yeah, you go.
No, we can hear you totally fine. So go, Cara.
Yeah, I was just going to say the photo on the right with the piano is taken. We are doing this project across both sites, and we're excited at the possibility of visitors going to see the exhibition in both sites, because they will look so different, because they are completely different galleries.
So that
That's
one on the right is the
probably enough
piano.
then, huh?
Yeah, because that's actually in Cranbourne, the one on the right. These are actually in our gardens. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, I think that's
one on the right is the Bloodwood Garden in Cranbourne, and on the left is the Glasshouse Lawn in Melbourne Gardens.
Beautiful. I'll just see if there's more. Oh, and there's Mel O'Callaghan's amazing work. This is the one I was saying was quite interactive, changes depending on where you stand around it, and has a very beautiful soundtrack, which is like the sound of someone breathing. And that's it.
Thank you, Sally. Let me
Yes.
just want to stop sharing for now. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Sally and Cara.
Yes.
I understand the difficulties of connections at times, but I've really learned to understand what people are saying just from picking up about 1 in every 4 words. So it's amazing the skills I've picked up during this time. But you know, as you can imagine, having worked with Sally and Cara over the last 2 years, you know, closely, I've learnt a lot, and I hope that you've all picked up on some things there. Just if there are any questions about any of those projects that Sally and Cara were outlining, then feel free to add them into the chat here. But I know as well that they'd both be happy to answer any questions either on email or even, you know, pick up the phone if you wanted to chat as well. And I'll include their emails in a follow-up email here. How many times can I say email in the same sentence? Let's see. But really that presentation and the idea of these presentations, as I was saying before, is designed as a gateway into conversations around the different types of things that people are doing in different gardens. And as Sally and Cara said, they often, so all these projects start off with just a really small idea, often in our cases, working with different artists and people from outside our gardens. And we simply become the facilitators in that journey. So what I'm going to do now is open the room up, so to speak, for people to talk about some of the projects that you're doing around this topic of self-guided visits, as well as any relevant updates that you'd like to share with the network as well. It doesn't have to be just about self-guided visits. We have, I think, about 40 minutes or so to do that. Usually it sounds like a bit, but it usually goes pretty quickly. So if you would like to, perhaps just raise your hand using the under reactions down the bottom, and I'll go around to the people as we're going. So to kick us off, Linda, you've got your hand up. Yeah, you can unmute yourself and fire away.
Kia ora tātou, that's g'day everyone from New Zealand. So yeah, just Christchurch Botanic Gardens. We've been doing self-guided trails forever, really, basically because we don't have the capacity to do a lot of detailed public programming, and I'm assuming that that Agents of Discovery is reasonably well known to you guys now. I can't see enough.
I think we have had some updates in previous.
Yeah, I think I've talked to you previously before, and we continue to use it as an AR self-guided experience. And in fact, during lockdown last time, we opened it to the whole, basically the whole of the geographical area was the whole of Christchurch, so people could do the activity in their own backyards or in their own local parks. But now we're back to just doing it around the city and still within the Botanic Gardens. And in fact, we're only going to do that over the next our next offering of our normal guided programs, because because of lockdown and timing and things like that. So that was just that was the main thing. I think I've made some comments before about, because we're starting to get into doing a lot more audio for our historical central city cultural experience, and we're starting to try and sort of match up the guided tour experience with the audio experience, particularly for cultural tours, because the capacity of the runanga, which are the local Indigenous people, to lead guided tours is really limited, just in terms of the numbers of people available. And so as a training for them and for their rangatahi, their young people, they're thinking of using the audio that we're developing as a by handing out headphones. People do the guided tour that they're listening to, but they're actually being physically guided by someone. So that guide is also learning the korero, the speech that they can give, but they don't feel like they have the authority to do it, because it's sort of information that's handed, that's handed down. So that's just a couple of thoughts, just a couple of ideas. So now I've got to get out of here.
Thank you very much, Linda. And I'll just ask if you wanted to raise anything, put your hand up. Michael, you've got your thumb up. I'm going to take that as a hand up as well. So,
well, yeah, I don't actually have a hand up, so I thought I'll put a thumb up instead. I was looking for it and couldn't find one on this one. Yeah, we're just getting into a fair few guided tours as well. We've got a poetry one at Wollongong Botanic Garden at the moment, using sound as well. But thank you, Sally and Cara, for a great presentation and great ideas, and it's really good to see how artists are infiltrating the botanic garden world in whether it's sculpture, photography, sound, whatever, or whether it's theatre of that. And one thing I wanted to ask about and see how you're going with it, but one thing I found with the QR coding, we use that and I find it really useful. It's funny because before the pandemic happened, people were saying, oh, it's really old-fashioned. It's useless. Nobody likes QR codes. But that's the one good thing about the COVID pandemic disaster that we've had, is that we all are getting really, really good at using. It's natural to use QR coding, and it's great. We did on one of our outstations, we've got just one QR code on one of the interpretive signs, and I play around with my family whenever I take them there. I'll take somebody there who's never been there before, and I say, I'll get onto that QR code because it'll tell you something about this site, and it's me dressed up as a character. And I love it just to see that. But I don't know how many people would look at that. So I like that idea of being able to find out how many people look at your that analytical sort of response you're telling us about. That's a great idea. Yeah, you want to know how many people are using it. Yeah, that's me.
Do you want to say anything to that, Sal? I was just going to say that.
Sorry, I just put my hand up. I figured it out, but it took a while. There it is. I'll probably never get it down again. But I just, Michael, it's really interesting what you're saying about QR codes. At one point it felt like they were a little bit old-fashioned, that we tried them, and there was still, we had noticed from our Chinese visitors that there was still kind of very much they use the QR codes, particularly for things like WeChat. But I must admit I was quite skeptical about them at first, until one of the great outcomes, I think, of the COVID pandemic has been we're all become adopters of the QR code. We know what it means, and we're not afraid of them anymore, and we understand how they interact with our phones. With Sonica Botanica, what's been really fantastic is being able to, like Cara talked about before, is not only track the number of listens through the SoundCloud file, but also track the number of QR codes, times people have scanned the QR code to access that file. And for Sonica Botanica, over both of those episodes, we've found that 75% of our listens come via the QR code, which to us means that means 3/4 of the people who have listened to that work have listened to it as it's intended, which is to be listened to in the gardens. Absolutely very happy for people to listen to it remotely as well. But it's been really fantastic to be able to track and see, to see what that means, to see that they work actually.
Well, that will go up after this session, Sally, when everyone listens to it remotely. So thank you. Mac, you had your hand up just before as well. Did you want to add in something?
Everyone, I was struggling with the button for a second there as well. Sorry. No, I just wanted to check in, and it was just raised just then, tracking those QR codes. I guess in general, how are people managing their, the tracking of data, given a lot of the digital inputs? And are you chatting with your comms managers and using Google Analytics and AdWords and all that sort of stuff? I'd love to just know just generally how people are managing that, because it's something I'm looking into more and more for education. and loving the presentation, everyone. Thank you.
That is definitely not a question for me, Mac. So is there someone
I
here that
could.
would
I
love
could
to-
say something
Cara.
if no one else has anything to say. But Mac, yep, I'm with you. We're always, you know, our attendance targets were all very much about people being on site. And so we have worked with marketing and to find out, and, you know, using Facebook. We did some live streams last weekend for Science Week. And of course, you get from Facebook, you get some pretty great analytics as well, where they talk about engagements and they talk about impressions. But yeah, we've sort of been we haven't quite landed there yet. But, you know, an impression, I think, is judged by 3 seconds. Unfortunately, that's what the world uses. To me, my background is sort of more from a festival live performance, people being in the one place together background. So I kind of struggle with that. But we were saying in reporting back to Science Week that we would present about 4 of the different categories and explain what they were. And one of the ones that I pushed really hard for, because it was a good stat, was the number of people that listened to like 70% of the hour-long content. So all I can say is I'm with you. If you've got any more, I'm very happy to further, you know, join a conversation about it. But I'm trying to sort of push for more than the impression, because I think that's rubbish that you count 3 seconds. There you go. That's my big opinion on that one.
Thanks, Cara. That's a worry for me if impressions have to be longer than 3 seconds, but that's all right. Feel free to put your hand up if you have anything to add. We'd love to hear about you know, some of the things that are happening and coming up in your gardens. Anyone else there?
Do you want me to share my an image of my Fibonacci code? It's going back a little bit. Sounds like.
Yeah, great, Michael. Let's do that.
Right, I'm not sure. Let me see. Oh, share. Oh, I do. All right.
There we go. So you should be able to share it now.
And I just talk about it. It's not. Look, it's just a obsession with mine at the moment. Let me see. Screen 1. Let's hope I get this right. What are you saying? Anything? Probably not.
Yep.
You are? Well, what are you all seeing?
Yeah, we're seeing patterns in nature, curious dreams of an architect.
Oh, yeah. So you're seeing a sculpture there?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, good. I wonder if I can change that, whether you, because it's a PowerPoint.
Just down yep, that one there.
I'll see if I can click. Oh, yeah. So well, if I can, well, look, I'm not sure if this is the number 1, but we had a sculpture competition. We have them every 2 years. And that happened this year, I think. Was that this year? Earlier this year, in between the lockdowns, we were able to get it. In fact, I think it was a year behind. But this was the winner. This sculpture called Curious Dream of an Architect. And the artist was really inspired by Fibonacci, amongst other things, other sort of patterns in nature. So, but he inspired me. So I thought, we've inherited this sculpture. The winner stays in the garden. So we've got it. It's almost going to be in that spot too, against that beautiful Angofra behind it. But so what I did, I developed a little tour based on that, because I thought have a self-guided tour while I'm away, you know, at home, and people can sort of go around the garden. It was a little bit open at that stage, but it's in with our marketing people to make it a lot better looking. But really what I discovered was that I'm not sure if you people are aware of Fibonacci, but basically he is, I'll see if there's a picture of him. Hang on, I'll go back. No, that might be him there. Oh yeah, Fibonacci, there he is. So Fibonacci was an Italian mathematician that lived in medieval times, and he noticed in nature that things grow in a particular sequence. That's the simplest way. And what they grow in is by a smaller number being the, hang on, I'll start again. The first 2 numbers added together make a third number, whether it's a space, whether it's a length, you know, whether it's a diameter or whatever. And so that was the idea with that sculpture. So the first space there, number 1, that's the smaller space. You add 1 and 2 and you get 3. You add 2 and 3, you get 5, and you add 3 and 5, you get 8, and 8 and 5, you get 13. And that is the Fibonacci sequence, and it's everywhere in nature. So once you're aware of it, it's really exciting to look at. Now, look, you can see it in branches. So as the branches, the twigs at the top, the smaller branches are just, they're one diameter, whereas right at the bottom you've got 21, and it goes in that Fibonacci sequence. But it's really good in flowers. I don't need to show you all of these, but just give you a bit of an idea. But I'll zip through them actually there, just see if there's anything. Oh yeah, it's in pine cones. So there were a number of petals there. The actual sort of, you cut an apple in half or lots of fruit in half, there'll be in a Fibonacci, number, 5s, snails, sort of nautilus shells and starfish, bananas even. Bananas have got 5 sides. Always wondered why bananas were all 3 sides. And then even the ferns, the way they're curled in a Fibonacci way. If you look at that little diagram on the right, the drawing, I don't know whether you can see my cursor on it, but that, that 1 centimeter, and to another centimeter gives you 2 centimeters, 2 + 1 is 3, and so on. And that's in that diameter. And then just continuing straight through, even, with succulents, with music. This bit, I was a bit beyond me a bit. I'm not a musician, but I sort of got it. And even in beehives and in the generation of bees and that sort of thing. But out of that, it all came from that sculpture. So I'll finish off. I think that's it. Oh, that's just a tour. I'll go back anyway to the beginning one. There we are. So that was it, the Fibonacci tour. So that's one we're doing, it's being developed right now as we go. But it's quite an old-fashioned type one, but it works really well.
And has that been the public using that, Michael?
No, they're not. So what it is what I found is when you develop something like this, as an educator, you've got to go through lots of different layers to get it accepted as a thing. So everybody loves it, but one of the things that we want to try and do is get it to marketing, get marketing to produce it in such a way that it fits in with all the other interpretive signs in the garden. My signs that I use for treasure hunts and things tend to be really big and bright like this, but there's a lot of stuff on them. Yeah, so, artists do it a little bit better. Yeah.
No, great. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. All right, so I can stop sharing now.
Yeah, I think I stopped you sharing.
Oh, already. Good. I'm gone. Thank you.
Started winding you up. No, not really. Yeah, thank you. Anyone else like to share any updates from their particular garden? I can do that awkward waiting for people to put their hand up. You're welcome just to turn your microphone on and start talking.
Even comments or an idea, any comments or ideas about interpretive signs?
Actually, I was going to say hello. My name's Jennifer Waithman, and I'm new to the garden area. I'm a new employee with the Sunshine Coast Council up in Queensland, even though I'm stuck in Victoria right now because we can't move. But we have 3 different sites I will oversee, and one of them is a Bushland Regional Botanic Garden. And so it's my first time meeting and seeing some of you. I'm from the United States originally, as you can tell from my accent. I'm not from around these parts, but it's been interesting. I know they have a couple of interesting projects going on. They've used some augmented reality recently to do with the Wildflower Festival up at the gardens, working with a local secondary school. And there's also been a bit of work with the First Nations group doing an ethnobotany trail, and that signage will be going up and grand opening next month up there as well. So that's a couple projects I know about in my second week virtually. But it's good to meet some of you, and I look forward to learning more and joining more of these in the future.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for joining in, and yeah, welcome to the network and the new role. yeah, unfortunately being stuck in Victoria, I know where I'd prefer to be in some ways right now. So yeah, hope to be able to visit you at some stage in Queensland. And
Yes, as soon as we can get up there.
yeah, absolutely. Fantastic. Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, Joanne.
Hi. Sorry, I haven't got the video. Look, I'm an interpretive guide, and what I've found lately is that my work is dropping off. So what I've done is I've done a social media course, and then I've also just enrolled in a graphic design course. I do some pretty good art and photography, and I'm just thinking that this is the sort of thing that I wanted to listen to and hear, because I think it's so important that we engage people in many different ways, not just in the way of come into the garden and leave. I used to work at the Mount Tomah Botanic Gardens. I don't work there anymore. But yeah, so this is my way of sort of moving forward, is graphic designs. And on a Friday afternoon, I actually teach two of my friends who are interpretive guides. I teach them botany via Zoom, so that we can teach them enough botany to identify native plants. So that's just something I'm doing in lockdown. I mean, no money, we just do it for fun. So that was all I wanted to say. Yeah, and it's been great listening to the presentations. They're very inspiring. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanne. Yeah, really interesting to hear. Yeah, the botany online course sounds great. Anyone else like to? We've only got a few more minutes really, so we might wrap it up soon anyway. But last calls for anyone to give any updates or share any news from their particular gardens. All right. Well, we might leave it there unless there are any last questions or thoughts that anyone wants to put into the chat. I want to thank everybody for coming along today. I know, you know, these are really difficult times for some people, and some more so than others. I want to say that the power of a network like this is being able to share those sorts of stories and experiences that different people are having. So if you have or you want to reach out, by all means, please feel free to get in touch with us here at the network, and I'm sure other colleagues would be happy to yeah, talk with you about anything that you're doing in your garden. Sometimes it's helpful just to have someone in a very similar situation and context to be able to bounce some ideas off. So if you'd like us to put you in touch with someone close by or someone in a garden in a similar role, by all means reach out. The other thing that I just wanted to, a couple of other things I just wanted to highlight before we finish, as Michael said earlier, we're looking at or bringing back to life the BGEN blog, which is on the BGEN's website. We're looking for stories or posts that we can put up there. So if you have any updates or articles, resources, or things that you're happy to share, the best way to get them posted is to send them to me, and we'll arrange for them to be put up onto that blog to share with the network. And the last thing is, if you're not already, I imagine most people here are through their organisations a BGEN's member. Really recommend, yeah, making sure you join BGEN's that supports this this network and these the work of all the gardens and the committee here as well. Thank you very much for your time again, and we will. Sorry, Sally's just having a go at me about my vanity filter in the chat there, and yeah, thank you very much. We will have one more network session before the end of the year. I know it's sneaking up very quickly, the end of the year. So hoping that everybody's able to join us then as well. But thank you, and have a great afternoon wherever you are.